I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello.
Woo! We got some ghosts. Woo!
We found ghosts. Like we found gold or whatever.
Yeah! There's ghosts in them hills.
I found a ghost in them hollers.
Let's go to the ghosts. Dig them up.
This is not why they're listening, or maybe it's exactly why they're listening. I don't know.
There be ghosts in them hills. Come on.
You're not going to actually keep that, are you?
Oh, we're keeping it.
Okay.
Oh no, it's done. You guys exposed themselves.
Well, the way that I started it, JT was like, "Be more excited," and I'm like, I was excited.
They're excited.
It was a little lackluster, but anyway,
it was not prospector excited. It was not
prospector
old-timey minor 49er excited. Let me tell you something about them ghosts.
All right. Let's talk about Washington, Georgia, everybody.
Washington,
Georgia.
Yes. Yes, we went there, and
yes.
Washington, Georgia, founded in 1780, the first city in the United States named after George Washington.
You sound like the beginning of an audiobook.
Honestly, that was like lit. Like I was like, oh my God, how long is he gonna go here?
Yeah. What else do you know?
We know so much about Washington because when we went to Washington, Georgia, we were given not only a grand tour, but we were also sat down with the foremost historian of the city.
Yes.
We were treated very well in Washington, and basically. Washington recognized that what they had was a remote but very active haunted establishment and haunted city altogether that they really haven't capitalized on, that they haven't used to its greatest extent. And they invited us to come out and try to uncover some of the hauntings there. And it was an immense visit.
Yes.
We
did.
We arrived there on a Sunday, and literally one of the first things that happened was JT set up and took a drone shot of the hotel, which brought us an image that immediately made us take double takes and look at and go over and over again. And being ghost experiencers, ghosts. We're trying to get away from ghost hunt and call it ghost hunter.
We're storytellers.
Ghost
we're
enthusiasts.
Storytellers, and we also, sometimes look for ghosts.
Right, ghost investigators, paranormal investigators. Being that we've done this for a long time, we have looked at a lot of pictures, and so even looking at this picture, it's like instantly in your mind, you're like, yes, I understand that there's reflections, there's lights, there's there's trees somewhere nearby, there's all the glass itself might be a little wavy. There's all kinds of reasons, but just about everybody who looks at this picture sees at least 4 faces. and things. And one thing that jumped out the moment I saw it, it kind of looked like almost a caricaturish skull, a pumpkin skull. Yes. It was very prominent. And then once you get past that, there's a very clear little girl's face, and then there's something that kind of looks like a wiener dog. And so you have
a little demon in the bottom.
And then this little demon or haggish, twisted face. And that was first thing. That was the first thing. We weren't even unpacked. I don't think I even arrived.
You weren't even there yet.
I hadn't even gotten there. I was coming in from Atlanta, and so the drone footage told us right away, oh, you're in for it.
Yeah, the drone that we have shoots 48 megapixels, so very, very, very sharp images. You can zoom in and still get some pretty sharp stuff. And when I first looked at this, I was like, I wanted to put it on social media, mainly Facebook, because we're getting a lot of engagement at the time on Facebook, but we only put it on IG because people are nicer there. The reason...
Yeah, Facebook be nicer, seriously.
No, Facebook is really mean. But basically... it didn't look real to me.
Right. It looked like manipulated images. And
I didn't want people thinking that I'm over here doing that because I don't.
We
do
have
that
all
ever.
had the experience of having a photo that when we present it, people are the very first thing they say is, "Oh, well, that's photoshopped. Oh, you photoshopped that in."
Not.
It's like, no, it's not photoshopped, and that's one of the great frustrations of having a piece of evidence is there is that that great quote, which is, for those who believe, no evidence is necessary. For those who don't, no evidence would suffice.
Ooh.
And that's truth.
That is so true.
You can put a very compelling piece of evidence in front of somebody who has already made up their mind of what is and what isn't, and they immediately know how to debunk it in their mind. And so it makes you hesitant. You have this thing and you're like, oh, they're just going to tear this apart.
Yeah.
I
was like, I'm not putting this on Facebook. Well, we're going to make a TikTok out of it, but I'm also, going to include probably a shot of the raw file just in the TikTok, a raw file with the zoom in, so people see that it hasn't been exported yet.
Yeah.
Because it looks a little fake, but it also looks like something.
Well, and we weren't even investigating at that point. We were literally
just getting B-roll.
Well, we had been there for maybe 10 minutes, y'all. Like literally nothing. Like I was just in there taking, our stuff out, and JT's like, "Oh, I'll just go get the drone footage while we're setting up."
I have to get the drone. If it's a beautiful day, I have to get the drone footage because I'm so terrified that it's going to be rainy.
Right. The clouds will come in, or something.
The clouds will come in, and then I won't be able to get that drone shot, and I'll regret my life. So yeah, that's like.
But it was just so bizarre. And my mom too, I sent her the photo and she immediately goes, "There's a little girl in that," without even because at first I was like, "Oh, look how pretty the hotel is." And she was like, "What is that in the window?" And I'm like, "See, it's like, it's not just us being like crazy and being like, oh, there's a ghost in there."
Right. And the way it looks, though, it does not look like you're looking at something like behind the window looking through. It is definitely like an image being projected to you. Like, do you see this? It's not. So it's fascinating, and that's right off the bat. That's right arrival. That's literally before I get there. That footage was taken, and I come rolling up, and they're like, "Oh, wait until you see your room. Wait until you see my room. You're staying in the most haunted room in the hotel. Great, by myself."
Yes,
thanks.
Let me tell you what they did. The town of Washington, Georgia, invited us, and it was just, they have been nothing but just amazing. And
absolutely wonderful.
Yeah,
they literally everyone welcomed us the moment we got there, like everybody in the town, and it was awesome. And then they were like, "You have the whole hotel to yourself for 2 nights."
Yeah,
and we were like, "What?" I mean, this is a massive hotel, and we get the most haunted rooms to stay in, room 100, and we have access to room 201, and then 307, which is Chris's. That's the most haunted room, the most
celebrated room. So, like, if you're looking at ghost tourism, try to get room 307.
Yes,
it is like the moment we walk in,
creepy.
you just feel like, oh yeah, this room is wrong.
Yes.
There's something going on here. To start off, the moment you open the door, you're looking at a very antique mirror vanity. I'm not even sure it's necessarily a vanity because of the shape of it. It might be like just a big hall mirror or something.
Right.
It is, clouded and speckled, and you immediately I see faces in it, and it just feels bad. But it's also facing another creepy little mirror. It's directly opposite a creepy mirror. I'm like, great, a creepy mirror vortex. How lovely. But wait, there's more. There's a mirror facing my bed that kind of creates an intersection of the mirror.
Triangle.
It is
a triangle of mirrors. Nobody needs that.
Yeah,
nobody wants that.
I posted that photo on Patreon, and the Parajunkies went off. They're like,
what?
No! Chris has to sleep next to it. They were worried for his personal safety. And everything.
And most people know that I have mirror anxiety. I have a definitive fear of mirrors. So it was lovely. Thank you so much. That was great.
Well, and it's funny too, because we sat down with the director of operations, Brittany, and I was like, "Girl,
what is going on with the interior design? She's like, oh yeah, that's the only one we didn't touch.
Yeah,
Like
we didn't change it. Oh,
we didn't
great.
change it. I'm like, well, maybe you should, because it is just wrong.
Just scooch one of the mirrors just a little away.
Or take it to a different room.
Take it to a different room.
Like,
nobody needs that. And the smaller the mirrors, I kept having to adjust because it's old and it moves like this. But when it moves, it goes. You're like, why? Why make that noise?
out of all the noises.
You're like, stop it.
No.
I don't like it. It was very upsetting. And so.
And then your light bulbs.
We're just setting up. We're just kind of like unpacking. And I had invested in the Ghost Tube lens, which is basically just one of those phone caddies for your VR. And they created a new app, Ghost Tube Seer, which basically it just creates AI utilizing the same kind of principle of plucking words out of a word bank because of electromagnetic sensors. But what was interesting was I put it in just to figure it out, because it's not the quickest thing to figure out, but I figured it out. The first thing I do, I put it on and an image comes up. I'm standing in the room and the image is of two women fighting. And there's another figure in the room, but predominantly it's like professional wrestling, like head grab is what it looks like. The story of the room that I'm in is that a woman threw another woman out the window after catching her with her husband. And I was like, oh, how very prescient to have this image show up right here while I'm standing. Again, I hadn't unpacked. I was just like putting the stuff out, and I was like, I should learn how to use this thing. And that was it. That was the first image that came through. Maybe we'll insert it here. Yeah. So yeah, right off the bat, we were getting really interesting and strange and peculiar things. And all this was like gearing up. We're not even hunting yet, but we're having like these little feelings of, oh, this is going to be something. Yeah. And then we were gearing up for an interview with the town historian, Skeet Willingham, Robert M. Willingham, as I would learn, who wrote the book on Washington, Georgia, which I read in like 2008 or 2009. So it was very weird because even JT joked, like maybe he had written the book, because I was talking about that. What I know of Washington, Georgia, I read in a book. And he was like, well, maybe Skeet wrote it. And I was like, no, it was some guy, Robert something. Yeah. And it turned out to be, that was him.
Skeet.
Old Skeet.
And today we are in historic Washington, Georgia, which is incredibly haunted, y'all. We had no idea until we got here. I mean, we heard the rumors that it was super haunted, but we literally got here and weird stuff immediately started happening. So the rumors are true if you've heard them. But we are actually here in the middle of town square with Mr. Skeet, who is a local historian, and he's going to be telling us all about the history of Washington, Georgia, and Wilkes County in general. So, Mr. Skeet, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, I am Skeet Willingham, Robert M. Willingham Jr., if we want to be formal about it, which I never do. So, I am sort of the local historian, I suppose, and have written a number of books on Washington and the area.
I read one of your books. I didn't realize you were Robert.
You are. I'm quite impressed that anyone has read one of those.
It was the Images of America.
Yeah, the Arcadia Press book.
Right.
Which is still in print, folks.
Oh yeah, go on and get it.
Most of the others are out of print now, so
that's amazing.
Yeah, but that one is still available. So, but yeah, I grew up here, have enjoyed living here most of my life, and my grandparents, their grandparents, and their grandparents all were from here. And this is honestly a sort of a special year for Wilkes County or for this area, because it was exactly 250 years ago that this area was first settled, not just by those of European descent, but by anybody, because even the Native Americans used this as a hunting ground, but there were no permanent settlements here. So it was 1773, in the fall of that year, that these lands were opened up by the British government, who obviously were then in charge of the colony of Georgia. And it was done basically to pay off the debts that the Native Americans had accrued to English traders who were delivering all sorts of things, beads and books and candles and anything else to these Native Americans who were the Creek and Cherokee were in here.
Absolutely.
But
And there's also some really interesting big points in history. We're actually sitting right by one of them. The beautiful courthouse that's behind us, which I'm sure we'll cut in a nice photo of. But this actually was the place where the first woman was convicted to death, right?
Polly Barclay.
Polly Barclay.
Polly Barclay was
Yes.
hanged. My most recent book was on Polly's hanging, as a matter of fact.
Well, there you go. Perfect.
So, yeah.
Okay, everybody.
And like too many of them, it's out of print too, but we can put it back in print.
We'll get interest.
If
You
there's
hear that,
a
everybody?
huge
Ask about it.
onslaught of folks who are interested. But yes, Polly Barclay arranged for the murder of her husband in 1806. And she was actually held in a makeshift jail that was the building that's on the corner right over there.
Oh.
And she was in the basement.
This building with Simpson on it?
The little green building, the building that's
Oh.
green there.
I see.
And the basement is the original basement there. The
Oh.
upper floors were built about 1840.
That is
But the
horrifying.
basement is the original basement
Wow.
in there, from what we gather. But Polly was hanged about a little less than a mile to the west of us, where we are now. And supposedly she was hanged, and it's never been certain. We don't know where she was buried. If tradition holds, she was probably buried not necessarily under the Fitzpatrick Hotel, but certainly in the backyard of the Fitzpatrick, because that was the city graveyard.
Perfect. We're actually staying in a room with a great view of that. So
Well, good.
to know.
Okay, that's excellent. Then you can, if there's a little shape shifting at night, you can you can figure maybe what's going on over there a little bit. But that was the graveyard in the mid 1850s. The graveyard was moved to Rest Haven Cemetery, which is on the west side of town, and is still the city cemetery. But now whether if it was normal, a lot of those graves were left intact.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they might have, if there were stones, and they did move some of the stones, and we know where those are located at Rest Haven. But there was a paupers section. There was a section for enslaved that was also in that back side of the hotel as you head over to Washington Tavern, now the restaurant that's over there now. And the old jail, which has been restored, is in the process of being lovingly tended to, and will be condos, I think.
Oh,
And
there you go.
and it's an 1880s, 90s building, but it's, again, on the location of probably the second jail, and probably would have been the jail that was existing here when Polly was hanged.
Right.
But that was an all-male institution, and they didn't really have a place to put Polly because that
fascinating.
hadn't happened much before.
So Polly basically arranged for the death of her husband.
Yes.
What happened to the person who perpetrated the actual crime? Was he also captured?
He was captured in a fashion. They allowed him to escape, But he received in that day in 1806 he received a fate probably worse than hanging. He was banished to Kentucky.
Oh no. I'm so sorry to our Kentucky listeners.
I'm sorry about that as well. But
well, no, it's very interesting because that's the intrigue of it too is the severity of the punishment for conspiring versus the actual action of doing the deed.
So, we had a lot of conflict of spirits in that room in particular. We did an Estes method, which we find to be one of the more effective ways to truly get good evidence, if you will.
Yeah, it's kind of our brand.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing is like, if you just sit there with the spirit box, it's so easy to just look for what you want to hear.
Try to find answers in the sounds.
Exactly. Right. And so with the Estes method, it really eliminates those variables and it makes it easier to get more concise evidence and get your questions answered if they're willing to talk. And so
willing was not the problem this time.
Yes. Too many were willing to talk, which was a lot.
I mean, we were getting direct answers like immediately in room 307. That was
honestly in most of the rooms we were getting immediate.
No, but I'm just talking about this first one.
Yeah.
It just like we were starting out and it was like jarring. We were like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
We could hardly keep
already.
up with it. Yeah.
Tons of activity day one. Like.
Well, so the problem was with Chris's room, and I think a lot of it has to do with the 3 mirrors. Truly, I think
absolutely.
It is.
Yeah, no question.
Lots of activity and lots of things to come through, but there was just too many spirits kicking each other off the feed, and so it was hard for me at times to distinguish who was talking. Because they would talk over each other, which you don't often hear a lot through spirit boxes. Usually, sometimes they'll be kind of low, like with what they're saying. And so you're just like, wait, hold on. You got to repeat that again because I didn't understand what you said. But this time it was like multiple words would be mashed together. And I'd be like, okay, everybody's got to talk one at a time because I can't decipher what you're saying.
Can anybody hear us? Is anybody here? Is there anybody in this room that would want to talk to us? Friends. All right. How many of you are there in the room with us?
6.
Okay. Can any of the 6 spirits tell me their names? We'd love to meet you. We'd absolutely love to know who you are.
Elizabeth.
And just for our listeners who don't know what the Estes method is, maybe they're not parajunkies or maybe they're just brand new listeners, we all just real quick just give like a quick explanation of what the Estes method is and what it entails.
So the Estes method is basically isolating the person who is listening to the spirit box so that they cannot hear or see any kind of stimuli that might influence what they're hearing on the spirit box. It was developed in Estes Park primarily for use at the Stanley Hotel, but it actually is a wonderful way to eliminate the part of the mind that searches for an answer to a question. Because if you hear the question or if you know what the question is, you automatically start combing for the sounds that might sound like the answer. But instead, now we're asking questions, and these answers are popping up organically in the purview of the person listening. Now, it is not easy to decipher a lot of it because if you've ever listened to the spirit box very carefully, there's a lot of mumble jumble. There's a lot of spikes, and there's a lot of weird things that come through. And that's when having someone who is more on the medium side, a little more on the psychic side, your most sensitive person on your team should be the one to actually sit with the equipment because they are going to have that extra edge of figuring out what is just random radio fodder and what is a spirit trying to come through.
not only do they need to, in my opinion, not only do they need to be sensitive, but they also need to be trustworthy. And that's where Madison comes in, because she could be saying whatever she wants, really.
that's fair. Yeah.
But we all know Madison is like just not like that. And we're all very authentic. We keep the show authentic. But that is also something that, you need. And so when those, I trust my wife is not doing that at all. And so when I'm asking, what's your name? And she immediately says Elizabeth, that junk is crazy.
And that's another thing, is the closer the connection to the question asker and the person answering is probably the best thing. So if you have a married couple, if you have siblings, or if you have people who are really closely connected, that might deliver more direct answers and responses. So I think JT and Madison make this great team, because they are linked together, and then when they are separated by sensory deprivation, there's still the connection.
Yes.
So it definitely helps when you start to realize that there are components that are not technical. Because the technical aspect of it all is machinery. Mm-hmm. It's the individuals, and we talk about that a lot. Like, you can hand a camera around, and only one person is going to get an image because the spirit is showing themselves to a specific person. Mm-hmm. It is not the equipment itself, but the people who are able to interpret it. And when you expand on that, it becomes people who are connected to the people who are doing it. So if you're going to attempt, like the Estes method or any kind of ghost hunting, kind of learn roles within within the team, so that you're like, well, you seem to be the most sensitive, and you are the closest connected to the most sensitive, and that way you are not wasting time trying to rotate all of these things, because that is a temptation to be like, oh, well, now you do it. Oh, well, now you do it. And well, now you do it. Not everybody has the same strengths. So, play to your strengths, know who the strongest person is in their roles, and then utilize that.
Right. And I think part of the reason why it helps that I am literally a walking antenna, it feels like, is True. Because an ability that I have that we don't often talk about on the show is that I'm also clairaudient, which means that I hear spirits. It's not as strong as my clairvoyance, but it is there. And so sometimes with the Estes method, even though I am only here, sometimes when they mumble or they're not being as punchy with their words, I can understand what's happening because I can hear it in my head. I can hear what words trying to come through, because I start to pick up on their voices. I start to pick up on who's talking, things like that, which helps. And then I'm also able to communicate with them in that way, because I will literally in my head be like, while we're doing, I'm like, y'all got to talk louder, or you got to, like, I can't understand you. You have to be more clear,
That's why you're so special to the show.
Thanks, y'all.
No, seriously.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's true. You're so good at that. And I think there's also a level of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the spirits, they sense that we're starting to realize this place is haunted, and they are there, and therefore there is that level of, okay, let's communicate more.
So I personally don't go into a place immediately assuming it's not haunted. I go into it assuming it is, and then if the evidence isn't there, then
The luck is... Mm-hmm. Spirits want to be seen, but they don't want to waste their energy. Mm-hmm. They don't want to waste an energy on somebody who's trying to figure it out. They want to show themselves to people who will accept it.
Yeah.
Because every time they do anything to reach out, they're expending energy. Mm-hmm. So let's say they go to a guy who is, on the fence. He says, this could be haunted, this couldn't be haunted, I don't know. The ghost comes and says, I'll rattle this door. And then the guy's like, well, that could be the wind. Immediately, they've lost the energy that they used to rattle that door.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
And they're not getting it back from the guy. Mm-hmm. The guy's not feeding them. He's not going, oh, I hear you. Mm-hmm. They're suddenly dwindling. And many hauntings probably diminish because they're trying their best to get it noticed, and people are quickly dismissing it and quickly coming up with the answers. It's like the idea of going in full debunk is dangerous in an investigation, because you're just diminishing a spirit, And then when you leave, that spirit's going to gain energy and gain energy and gain energy and still go back to whatever behavior it was doing. And that's especially dangerous with like when people are in peril.
Sure.
Because a lot of people are having a hard time, and then an investigator can go in and say, oh, well, this is a loose bolt here, and when the wind blows, this happens. And they go through and they reassure the person. And yeah, you know what? The spirit tried to make contact and then was shut down.
Sure.
And then the investigator leaves, the spirit's still there. And the spirit's like, I'm just going to have to try harder. I'll conserve my energy. And so you hear this all the time. Like exorcisms are a great example when people come to bless the house or cleanse the house. They're basically dampening the spirit, but the spirit doesn't go away. It's just like going, oh, okay. And then when it comes back, it's worse. Because it's thinking that I need to get the attention more. I need to do something more so that they're not, afraid of me or that they're not.
Right.
So if you want to see that that live stream of our first night there in room 307, that is on Patreon. You can become a Parajunkie, or if you are a Parajunkie and missed it, all of that is saved on YouTube. So you just scroll down the feed, you can click right on it. So after that night, how was your night, Chris? Because I know
I did not sleep that night. It starts with, we are as far apart from each other as possible.
Literally.
In the hotel.
We are.
They're in the first floor at the far end, and I'm on the third floor at the far end. We are as far as humanly possible.
Yes.
So we have just kicked the hornet's nest of ghosts in my room. We're just like, hey, bam, wake up. Let's hear what you have to say. Okay, good night. And then... So my room is just buzzing. It's just buzzing.
It's buzzing. I asked how many spirits are in the room. Madison goes 6.
Yeah.
And I'm we were doing the Estes method, and all the Parajunkies went off. They were dying.
And they're like, Chris is sleeping there. I was like, yeah, sleep is a quote unquote, sleep. No, it was so intensely agitating to be in the room. So the very first thing that happens to me after I leave them in their room, I come walking back to my room. Did we stop at the ballroom on the way back to your room?
Yes.
I think we did. So,
yeah, I think we did.
So we did take a little detour into the ballroom. There's a lot of stories of seeing a woman in the ballroom. We go into the ballroom. The ballroom was a very oppressive feeling. Like the threshold of the door, it felt like the difference between going into a room, going from an air conditioning to non-air conditioning. It was that definite. You felt like this wall of, something happened. Something's very, like the air is still there.
It was also like walking into a pressure chamber.
Yes.
It was
Barometric pressure just changed drastically. And they had 2 mirrors facing each other.
Yes,
And
they did.
It was very bizarre, but one of the mirrors had this little blemish on it, and we'll explain what the blemish is later. Had a little blemish on it, which kind of alleviated the energy, because it was like, well, there's something wrong with that mirror, And I couldn't see I didn't know anything, but I was on the other side of the room going, there's something wrong with that mirror.
Yeah.
I just know it from sensation. And I'm not sensitive. I should put that on the table. I am hypervigilant.
Yes.
Which means I am paranoid. I'm really scared of things. So I sense when things are out of whack, not in a supernatural way, but in okay. Should I get my sword? Do I need my sword?
I should
get my sword.
Which he had in his car.
Which I had several in my car. I dropped them off in their room on 100 first floor. And then I trek through the big empty, no staff staff was there. Just me, and I think I grabbed an apple and pineapple juice from the little continental breakfast place. And I'm walking, and if you've ever been in a very large empty building, there's this sensation, this feeling that you're just like being followed. When I was up on the second floor, I really felt like I was being like pestered. Like there's a sensation that there was forces behind me, and the classic is, don't turn around to look at them, because I think that's what they want. They're like coming up behind me so that they'll turn around. And mostly I think they want me to turn around just so they can laugh at me. They'll be like, I gotcha. But I was like, no, don't do this. So I get up to my room, I open the door, and as I'm opening the door, as the door passes the plane where the mirror is, I swear I see a woman standing in front of that mirror, that creepy, creepy mirror. And it takes me, it jolts me just enough, but there's nothing there. And I'm like, okay, Chris, play it cool. You're all right. Just walk in with your apple. It's no big deal. So I get ready for bed. I lie down in bed, and I have a little lamp on by the bed. I turn the lamp off. I lie down, and I swear I feel like there's just a crowd of people standing around the bed, just like all around the bed. And I can't see very well because I need glasses to see. So I'm like shadowy, weird, warped, strange, mirror, no, God. Turn the light back on. So now I'm lying with my little lamp on, and I'm thinking, yeah, okay, this isn't too bad. I'll just, night light, try to sleep. No, I need to get up. I need to turn on every light in the room. Overhead lights, big lights, track lighting. Went into the bathroom, turned the bathroom light on. I'm like, all right, this is more like it. And every time I would get to like almost sleep, I get the sensation that there was somebody watching me. So I turn and I look. All right. So I turn over on my side. The moment I was on my side, it definitely felt like there was something right behind me. I'm like, no, sleep on your back. Nope, turn on your side. Nope, there's something right behind me. That was all night long. I did not fall asleep until the sun started coming up and started like covering the sky. And finally I was like, well, I can sleep. Now I can sleep. Now I can sleep. I'll just go to sleep, because even if they're running around, they have to be exhausted too. Yeah. Because all night they're like, ha, 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 ha. And so I was like, you got to be tired. Go to sleep.
And then you close your eyes, and I rang, and I was like,
then I got a text saying, it's time. It's time to go. And I'm like,
podcast.
I'm podcasting. Blum, 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 blum. So yes, we hunted down some coffee.
And we did.
Now, real fast, we heard something that night. Just backtracking just a little bit.
So JT, myself, and Debria, we were all sharing a room in room 100. And after Chris had left, it had probably been like 20 minutes or so after he had gone. And we were all kind of winding down, like we were all just laying in our beds, and we suddenly heard the loudest ka-pow
it shook the chandelier.
Yeah, literally. And we were like, oh my God, what was that? And JT was going up to go to the bathroom, and he goes, text Chris right now, and if he doesn't respond in 3 seconds, I'm going out there. Because we were worried that Chris had gone wandering around the hotel. As he does, to go look for more ghosts. And so we were worried that he had fallen down the steps, because the steps were not particularly easy steps. They're old.
We would learn that they were fatal steps.
Yeah, they were fatal steps. And so we were really concerned that he had fallen down them. And obviously there's no staff in the hotel, so it wasn't like somebody out there,
Also, remember that there was this loud sound in the middle of the night, because we will come back to that.
Yes. And so we text Chris, and he's like, nope, I'm in my room. And so we're just like, well, that's weird.
Super weird.
And so we're all just like, okay, that was just, I guess, a really weird noise at the hotel.
So we all slept like rocks, except
did.
for Chris.
Yeah,
Except for Chris.
there was no rocks in my room.
And JT was joking because we were all so tired at that point that we were like, okay, and he was joking that like the ghosts were hovering above our beds being like, woogity boogity. And we're just...
we're just like, they're like trying to scare us.
And they're like, hey, let's go up to the other guy's room.
Yeah, let's go up to the other guy's room.
He's wide awake.
So we sat down that morning with Brittany, who is the general manager.
No, she is the director of operations.
Director of operations.
Like all of the...
For the Fitzpatrick Group, which is a series of businesses and a series of things, in Washington, Georgia.
So she oversees everything. And so we started talking to her about like all the hauntings and stuff. And she confirmed some different things, including the fact when we had brought up that there were rumors that children had died in the hotel, she was telling us about the little girls. And mind you, one of the little girls died because she fell down the stairs.
Not just any stairs, the stairs directly in front of my room.
Yes. Yep. And so when she told us that, we all three were just like, and so that confirmed for us that more than likely was like some type of residual energy that we were hearing, because it sounded like somebody had just fallen down the steps. above us, on the floor above us, which would make sense in the way of those steps only led to the second floor, and then you had to go down a different set of steps. So it would have made sense why it sounded like it was coming up from the upper floor. So that was creepy. And then also, we figured out what was wrong with the mirror. Because we had known at that point that the hotel had been derelict for about 50 years.
This is the mirror in the ballroom.
Yep. Yes, we were filming in the ballroom, and because we were talking about how there was all these mirrors and stuff in the hotel, and we're like, especially these two mirrors facing each other, and she goes, well, you see, if you look at that mirror, there's a hole in it.
Yeah, y'all want to see the bullet hole? Let's go see the bullet hole.
Let's take a look at it.
It's we determined that it's a 22 caliber.
Yes. Apparently, they used to hire kids to come in here with guns to kill any rodents and pigeons that have roosted in here when this building was derelict. And so there's a 22 bullet hole right there.
Yeah, it's wild.
And that was because at one point when the hotel was derelict, a tree had grown up through the hotel into the ballroom, and pigeons started roosting in the ballroom. So they would let children into the hotel, and they could pay 10 cents a bird, and they would let children shoot the pigeons. And so that was a bullet hole in the...
It's a bullet hole that might have gone through a pigeon. For all we know.
Right. And so we're like, oh, okay, that makes sense as to why there is a hole in the mirror. Because JT was like, it kind of looks like a BB like gun hole or something. And so
it was a 22.
Yeah. And so we were like, okay, that makes sense why it's kind of alleviated the vortex nature, because it has been shot with a gun. So don't break your mirrors, but I guess if you have a vortex, shoot it with a 22. I guess that's a method now. But
it'll at least disrupt transmission.
Right. Apparently it works. But yes, so that was new confirmation as well. And so we just had so many people coming in and out through the ballroom and stuff like that. We were interviewing, and you'll see all of these, of course.
Yes, and it was a wonderful day of interviews, and we heard about so many things. There was apparently a very active ghost in and around the kitchen that throws bread and spins pot lids.
She had that video.
And they think it's a child, like a little boy, right?
Yeah, a boy. They're saying like 12 years old, which we don't have any direct stories about. But again, we're sitting on a former cemetery lot. We're also just a very fancy hotel where any number of people could have dropped off their ghosts.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reasons why you might see a ghost that you can't trace to an event in the hotel. And that becomes, the stories that kind of stand out is, she literally walked through, and this was kind of weird. She walked through the room to the kitchen, and she saw a boy standing in the corner. When we went into the room where she saw the boy, there was a chair facing the corner. It was Blair Witch feeling. It was like, why is there a chair just
Blair Witch feeling?
Because it's like you would think that it was a punishment chair, but the only child around is an 18-week-old baby.
Yeah.
So they're not putting the baby in the chair in the corner. So it was very odd because it's a very big room.
Hi, I'm Mandy. I'm everybody's mama here. I run the hotel on Mondays, and the rest of the week I'm the day chef.
That's perfect. That's
Which gives you free access to a large haunted hotel.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
So I know you were saying to JT and Debria that you had an interesting experience with one of the children ghosts as well.
Yes. When I first started here, I guess I'd been here a week or two, and all the rooms are like connected because, in the beginning, this was all one giant, house hotel thing. So when you go down to the kitchen, all the rooms connect. And when we go through what we call the game room, which is now the baby's room, when we go through the game room, we can cut into the kitchen through the swinging door. And so I'm just going through, hurrying, doing my daily running, and I ran through, and in the corner of my eye, I thought I saw something at the back corner of the game room. And so I kind of looked again, because there's always stuff piled in there. And I looked again, and it was a boy, and he was very clear. I was probably the only one in the hotel that day. He was very clear. He had brown hair. He was probably about 5 foot or so. I'd say I would have guessed like a 12-year-old little boy was standing there. He had kind of brown hair. He had an orangish plaid shirt on, and it didn't hit me until I was halfway through the swinging door, like, I just really saw somebody. So I went back and I looked, and it was nobody. And so I was like, okay, well, that's weird. Maybe I'm crazy. And I went about my business. And then a few months after I'd started here, one of the girls that worked up in the hotel started working with me in the kitchen as my prep chef. And it was her first day. She said, are you scared of like paranormal? Do you get into like weird stuff? And I'm like, what do you got? What are you trying to tell me? And she said, don't be alarmed, but there is someone watching us in this swinging door. It's got a glass in it. She's like, somebody's looking at us. And I was really busy, and I said, it's probably just my boy. Don't worry about him, and went about my business. But she swore he stood there and watched us, and she described him, and I was like, yeah, it's just the boy. It's okay.
Aww. Yeah, and that's the thing with children ghosts especially. They love to just observe a lot of times. And I mean, you see that a lot with many spirits, but children especially, they're so curious, and they're also not afraid of a lot of stuff. So
this is true.
It's interesting how at home it was that you immediately just accepted.
Right.
It's like, that's there.
That's just not my first go round in this town.
Well, there you go.
So I'm just kind of like,
right.
Well, then let's speak of your first go around in this town.
Actually, my first go round in Wilkes County with a ghost. We had just moved to Georgia from Texas. Me and my husband, we were real young. We had just got married. We moved here, and we rented this little house out in what we call Sandtown, which it's Wilkes County, but it's like between Meadville and Washington. Okay. And we rented this little house, and the first night we moved in there, it was kind of creepy, but it was a new place, and I was a kid, technically. We moved in, and as soon as we started carrying boxes in, like lights went flashing and stuff, and I thought, no big deal. It's an old house. Before too long, I started having somebody change the radio stations on me. I mean, you could hear it down the dial, and just if you got in the shower, you just got this overwhelming feeling like soap and hurry, just hurry up, get out of here, It was real freaky, and my husband just thought I was nuts. And my sister-in-law, who would stay with me a lot, did not think I was nuts because she witnessed a bunch of it. And so the final thing that I dealt with as I was moving out, the radio station kept turning, doors would slam. It was just, I never saw anything, but it was enough to make you feel weird in there. And I don't live far from there now. And sometimes when I drive by there, you get this weird, like, come visit me feeling. Oh. And so, this doesn't bother me at all, being in this hotel. I actually like it. And if the ghost would come visit me more, I'd be okay, because they don't seem to be doing any harm.
Sure.
So,
well, what are some other experiences that you had in the hotel?
Now in here, it was funny because I went home. This was actually a couple weeks ago. I went home and I told my daughter, because she, works opposite shift from me. And I was like, Rebecca, I just looked up and bread went flying across the kitchen. And she was like, it didn't just fall open. And I was like, no, like 2 slices flew from my shelf over in front of my flat top. It just, and she said, that's interesting. She said, because she said the day me and Camry were in there working, we weren't sure what was going on. And Camry is the one that saw the ghost in the window. A whole loaf of bread got thrown at them from the top shelf clear past the flat top. And I mean, it's a good distance. It didn't just, it would have just fallen, but it flew. And that's happened to Rebecca a couple times. Wow. and it happened to me one time. Sometimes, now the light flickering in there, that's just, our light is messed up, but we like to joke and say it's him. But that really has nothing to do with that. But it's just, you never know what you're going to get in there kind of thing. I was in there working one day. I'm not even going to lie. I had the fan going, a little fan on my table. I was prepping, so I'm running back and forth grabbing pans and grabbing lids. And I just grabbed a metal lid and stuck it on the table and put a little sticker on it, a label, so I can get ready. And it just starts spinning, and it was spinning like fast. And before I thought about it, I'm just being a jokester, and I was like, hey, little boy, get out of here. Mama's trying to cook. Go bother somebody else, And I didn't touch the fan. I didn't move. I stayed in the same spot, and the lid just slowly slowed down, and it just stopped. And you can see the fan still blowing my sticker strip. It's still blowing, waving in the wind, and the pan just stopped, like for no reason.
That chair should be anywhere except facing the corner. That was a little creepy.
It was very creepy.
It was, yeah, for sure. And yeah, so we got all sorts of news stories about things. We got confirmation about the little girls. We got confirmation about Miss Fitzpatrick, the little boy who we did not encounter, but next time I'm sure.
Next time we're going to hunt specifically for him because he moves things.
He does.
That is one of those things is when you have like 3 or 4 people with the same kinds of stories of the same kinds of things, because even Brittany told us that she's seen things fly, off of tabletops and things like that. It's like, so there's a spirit with enough force and energy to move physical objects. That's a potent and powerful spirit. So I'm intrigued to go back for just for that.
All right, y'all. We hope that you enjoyed part 1 of our Washington, Georgia paranormal investigation. Part 2 will be available this Saturday and will feature interviews with Brittany, the Fitzpatrick's director, and we will also be taking a deep dive into the infamous second night investigation. Stay spooky, y'all.